Welcome to the Sonic series. We will be going over my thoughts on the games in the franchise here. To clarify, these are the games I will talk about. In today's episode, we will talk about the original Sonic the Hedgehog game alongside its sequel, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Let us begin. Sonic's 1 and 2, the ones that truly started it all. Without these games, we wouldn't have gotten some of the coolest things I've ever bore witness to, some of the best music I've listened to, and some of the best games I've ever played, period. I respect the absolute hell out of these games for laying some incredible fundamentals which would stand the test of time and be perfected in later entries. However, how do these games hold up to the average barely legal Sonic fan these days? That's what I set out to find out, and the answer is... sort of. They're pretty alright, I suppose. I really don't have a lot to say about these games, honestly, mainly because I really only need to talk about the level design to explain why my feelings are this way. This is the key reason why I've punched these games into one video. There's just not a lot to say except what levels I like, and what ones I don't. So without further ado, let's begin with Sonic 1, then we'll move over to Sonic 2. Beginning Sonic 1 with Green Hill Zone, this stage is important. One of the most important stages ever made. You can tell because it's in 70% of the games. This stage is significant because it began what would become the fundamentals of 2D Sonic gameplay, using the environment at your disposal to go as fast as you can, whilst also exploring the world and finding little secrets in the level design, even to be able to go faster in some cases. This level does that pretty much perfectly, honestly. It's one of the best first levels in a gaming franchise to date, in my opinion. You can do whatever you want, wherever you want, without ever feeling like you're going against what you should be doing. It's brilliant. One quick aspect of this game I should mention is that the original version did not have the spin dash, and many re-releases, including Sonic Origins, which is where I played these games, added it in. I get that some people may get a bit antsy over the fact that I haven't tried the game without the spin dash, but here's the thing. I don't care. It's my ranking and my playthrough, deal with it. The game looks less fun without it anyway, so why should I bother? Anyhow, it's these aforementioned design philosophies which make Green Hill Zone the best level in the game, which does unfortunately mean that it's only downhill from here. Marble Zone's boring. You know all that stuff I said about using the environment to go fast before? Well... push some blocks, bozo. It's clear that this level took inspiration from other slower-paced platformers from the time, and it just doesn't work in this game. I am so sorry. From waiting for crushing ceilings to go by to riding a floating block along lava, there's simply not much to enjoy here. It's not bad, per se, it's just boring. You know what is bad, though? The special stages! I swear, the physics just do not function here, and alongside the bouncy tiles, they can either be quick one-off whatever things, or genuinely insufferable experiences. I swear, Special Stage 3 took me like 10 minutes to complete, and that's just one run of it. It sucks! Spring Yard Zone is pretty cool. The structure of the level reminds me a lot of Quartz Quadrant from Sonic CD, with many large areas connected by small walkways, but the level design and aesthetics remind me of Collision Chaos. There's a lot of springs and bouncy spheres everywhere, so you're naturally gonna bounce around a lot, and it's decently fun. The only gripes I have with this level are the enemies which roll around like Sonic, and getting to the end with 50 rings can be a little annoying, especially in Act 2. That's how you unlock the special stages, by the way. Overall, not a bad time. To elongate this section of the video a bit, I'll say that the bosses of this game aren't actually too bad, surprisingly. They don't take too long to defeat, and they all have creative solutions that sometimes tie in with mechanics used in the levels themselves. This is one of the cooler ones to me. You gotta wait for Robotnik to fly down to your level to hit him, but he removes a block of the ground you stand on, so you gotta be quick. Here it is, the big level everybody hates, Labyrinth Zone. This level is one of many that set the standard for bad water levels in video games, and at a first glance, you can see why. It's got barely any exploration to speak of, most areas are extremely cramped and awkward to navigate, and the water slows you down and can drown you if you're not fast enough. On my first playthrough, I had to use Act 1 for my final Chaos Emerald, so that meant replaying the level over and over again until I could beat it without taking damage. To say the very least, do not do this. There's so many bullshit enemies, annoying spike traps, and mechanics you don't think of until you're already dead. Plus you could always use the last two zones. Doing this permanently tainted my view of the level for the worse. Until I did a replay of the game for this video. Now, I'm not going to say this zone is great, heck, not even good, but I will say that there is a sense of flow you can get into with it, as there's not really any obstacles that force you to slow down at any point. There's always a way to do something faster, like platforming up when the water is rising so you don't have to worry about it. For these reasons, I will genuinely say that I think Marble Zone is the weaker one in comparison. That zone forces you to slow down to do extremely mundane things which could easily be avoided through various methods if it were given more thought. This zone doesn't ever really slow you down unless you need air, and you can reduce the amount of times you need to wait by just playing better. This doesn't justify my initial rate at this zone thanks to the Chaos Emerald fiasco, but there is a semblance of fun to be had here, and that's why it's a 4 out of 10 instead of a 2 out of 10. Starlight Zone is my second favourite in the game. Its design feels the closest to Green Hill we get outside of that zone itself. The nighttime aesthetic is gorgeous, the mechanics are well thought out, it's just a good time. I especially like the wind turbines that force you to think outside the box on how to progress, unless you have the speed shoes, and the seesaw platforms which bounce you around. This is actually what the boss is designed around, and it's just really neat to me. I really don't see how you couldn't at least like this zone, it's just too charming to resist. I really don't know what to think about Scrap Brain Zone. It's got a lot of interesting mechanics that do work individually, like the spinning circles and the platforms that become intangible for a bit, but there's just something about the zone that feels off. There's something here that's just not fun and memorable, and I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's because the killer final levels we get in later games like Metallic Madness and Titanic Monarch, but I don't know. I still like this zone, just not that much for some reason. You know, maybe it's because they hit you with the biggest troll ever in Act 3. Because it's actually Labyrinth Zone Act 4. What maniacs making you go through this place again? They had to have known what they were doing. I almost applaud them for it, honestly. I guess Final Zone technically counts as a separate zone, but it's only the final boss, which, in all fairness, is pretty damn good. Gotta pay attention to which pillar Eggman is coming from, react in time, then meander around some electric orbs, rinse and repeat until he's down, and so is the game. Overall, there's nothing this game does incredibly wrong outside of Marble Zone, but there's also nothing it does incredibly right either, outside of Green Hill. The only other aspect of the game I really want to talk about is the music, which surprisingly still holds up really well. There are some really solid and underrated tracks here, including but not limited to... I won't play Green Hill because I'm already certain you've heard it before. It's still a damn good track at the end of the day, however. Spring Yard Zone is a vibe and a half. The swing nature of the song makes me want to snap my fingers to the beat, and it's got some really memorable segments. Labyrinth Zone's theme feels like something that I should dislike, but I don't know, it's just really atmospheric and memorable, fitting the location fantastically. Starlight Zone is a track I could fall asleep to, man. I'm sure that people who grew up with this title have immense amounts of nostalgia for this track, as it just feels like it induces that feeling into you. Finally, I've gotta give major credit to the boss theme, as it is menacing as all hell. This song should have been Eggman's theme going into future titles, I'll say it. It just captures a sense of evil no other theme has. Even the one used in the semi-modern day games don't replicate it. And that is Sonic 1. Overall, a solid time despite its flaws. So far, it's definitely the 2D Sonic game I've spent the least amount of time in, both thanks to its shorter length and those aforementioned flaws. Sonic Origins has 2 other games I absolutely love, 1 game I like better, and there are 2 other 2D Sonic games out there that I'd prefer to play over this. I respect the hell out of this quaint first entry, but I would be lying if I were to say I'd play it over any other game with this style. Speaking of, I think it's about time to go into my controversial thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Sonic 2 liked how it worked with Sonic 1's levels and designed the game around those concepts to give us a faster paced, more streamlined experience than what came before. The levels are much more flat, straight, and emphasize speed far more than before. They reduced the act number to only 2 to make it much more difficult to grow tired of a level theme. There is the odd slower paced level here and there, but this is what people know Sonic 2 for doing, not to mention the introduction of the spin dash and Miles' Tails Prower. This naturally leads to the levels being a significant improvement over what Sonic 1 gave us, so why do I have this game so low, especially in comparison to the others? Well, let's actually talk about those levels first, then I can explain in detail. Picture Green Hill, but flatter, and you get Emerald Hill. This zone is the perfect example of these design philosophies I previously mentioned, as there are pretty much no walls to block your path. Every wall that could block your path is tied to a spring and a ramp, allowing you to gain even more speed from them. The exploration isn't completely gone, however, as there's a ton of secret item boxes and alternate paths you can discover. Overall, this is another really solid first zone, teaching you the mechanics fantastically whilst never getting old to replay. Even if I do kind of prefer Green Hill, Angel Island, Palm Tree Panic, Chemical Plant deserves its reused status as one of the most iconic levels in the game. This zone exemplifies Sonic speed even more than Emerald Hill, to the point where you can literally reach off of the screen due to how fast you're going. The more I think about it, however, the more I realise how automated this level is, especially in its first act. I am always shocked and appalled by the fact that the first act of this zone only takes a minute and a half to beat, there are no checkpoints, and it's mostly automated. The platforming itself is the most basic shit too, even easier than what came before. So what is this? I'm genuinely flabbergasted at this. Am I missing something? I've done 3 whole playthroughs of this game and it's gone the same each time. Please, somebody tell me if I'm tweaking or not. At least Act 2 picks up the pace with actual platforming, actual challenge, and actual stakes. It's still not a major improvement, but there is substance here, more than what came before. Not gonna lie, I think this level tricks you into thinking it's way better than it is due to its iconic status, when in reality, it's kinda basic, even more so than what you played in Sonic 1. With all that said, I can't bring myself to hate it, it's just that iconic and the music is that much bopping. It's definitely in the better half of zones to me, even if there's not a lot here to begin with. Aquatic Ruin is a difficult one for me, as it has the fundamentals of a really solid water level, but there's just the odd small annoyance that just blows. If you're good, you barely ever need to touch the water. That's a good fundamental. The water slows you down and is simply not nearly as fun as taking the top routes, so this works to drive you more than ever to play carefully. However, this zone presents a problem I do not have with any other: the enemies. I swear to God, these stupid grounder enemies are placed in the perfect positions to ruin your speed, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. Rolling doesn't immediately kill them, so they just kinda suck. I see people talk about how moments like this happen a lot in 2D Sonic, but it's literally only happened to me here on this specific level. It especially sucks if you're going for the Chaos Emerald here, as the random enemy placements kill your chance for one. Speaking of the Chaos Emeralds, I'm just gonna say it, this game has the worst special stages. Worse than Sonic 1, worse than Superstars. This right here is the bane of my existence. You run along these half-pipes collecting rings to reach a certain amount which you have to keep until a checkpoint. Do that 3 times to get an emerald. It takes genuinely forever, is sometimes impossible to react to, and requires you to do some zoinky ass movement you only figure out how to do until it is too late. I probably won't be doing all this in future playthroughs because it is so much of a hassle to the point of extending the game's runtime far more than if I actually got it. Overall, Aquatic Ruin isn't a bad level, it's just one I don't have a ton of fun playing through. For a first casino level in the franchise, a theme I don't usually like playing through, Casino Night is actually not that bad. It's surprisingly difficult to feel like the randomness of the bumpers and springs keeps you in a place for long, which is my main problem with all other casino levels. I always love the casino aesthetic in any game, and this level doesn't disappoint there too, and the lack of damaging obstacles makes it super easy to flex the power of Supersonic, which was introduced in this game. I adore the usage of super forms in any and all 2D games, it's the perfect reward for going out of your way to do the special stages. Overall, a shockingly fun stage I wouldn't mind replaying. Hilltop is one of the more forgettable zones in this game, which is quite a shame as the layout is quite fun. It looks very similar to Green Hill, but there are these sections where you go into the mountains you're travelling over, so there's quite a bit of variety. I also enjoy the small set piece of the lava rising from the ground, and there's a lot of uses for Supersonic thanks to that same lava. If the visuals were more distinct and the music was more interesting, I think people would latch onto this level a lot more than they do. Mystic Cave might be my favourite zone to play in the game. Not sure if people will stab me over that claim, but I don't know, it's got a perfect blend of speedy, vertical gameplay, paired with the exploration that would be explored in CD, but I would argue it's more like 3 and Knuckles. That game and Mania include my personal favourite type of level design for these 2D games, and having this level be similar to those naturally makes me more into it. I also really love the aesthetic of the level, the music bops really nicely, and Hidden Palace Zone. In later releases of Sonic 2, including Origins, the developers added a scrapped zone from the original, only playable by falling down a certain hole in this zone. What a great secret. I wish this concept would return in future games to encourage replayability even more. Hidden Palace was a pretty solid zone overall, but I didn't play it on my first playthrough, and I don't really have a lot to say anyway, so I'll leave it at that. Just know that Mystic Cave is a really fun time. Oil Ocean is a zone I feel the exact same way about as I do with Mystic Cave, just a bit less positive. There may be a few slower bits waiting on the elevators, but it's quite fun to blast through and explore. The atmosphere is probably its best aspect, however, as it truly represents how Eggman is polluting the world from previous zones. The orange background, the purple tiles, and the shades they use for each look kind of ugly, but that's exactly what I like. This zone makes you want to hate Eggman and what he's doing, and it succeeds at that fantastically. It may not be the most iconic zone or have the best gameplay, but it serves the narrative way better than anything in Sonic 1, and is still fun to replay nonetheless. I really don't know how to feel about Metropolis Zone. On one hand, this feels like a more consistent, interesting version of Scrap Brain from Sonic 1, with many more mechanics that work strongly. However, there is the odd area which is a pain to get through, like this section with the nut that basically forces you to get hit, or pretty much every one of these crab badniks with the extendable claw. They suck. For some reason, there's also 3 acts of this level, as opposed to the 2 acts of every previous zone. This leads to the level having the exact pacing problem the developers were worried was with Sonic 1, which just makes no sense. Maybe they already made the 3rd act before the decision and left it in anyway? I doubt that's the case, so overall, I do think I like this zone a lot more than other people, but I wouldn't say it's a personal favourite of mine. Up next is Sky Chase, where you ride on the tornado extremely slowly, dodging really simple obstacles. That's pretty much it. I wouldn't say this is as boring as Adventure 1's Sky Chase, and it does feel like a palate cleanser before the true endgame levels, so yeah, I enjoy this one, despite not really caring about it too much. Wing Fortress is kinda mid. I don't know, there's just something kinda boring about it, and I'm not sure what it is. It sort of feels like a straight line with barely any variety in the gameplay, even if there is a lot you're doing. I'm also not a fan of the color scheme, and the music's pretty mid, just throughout this whole Sonic 2 section, I feel like I've been quite negative about the game, but that's the thing. I don't think this game is bad, it just doesn't do anything to truly make it something special in my opinion. Emerald Hill is a weaker Green Hill, Mystic Cave is a weaker Quartz Quadrant, and Wing Fortress feels like a weaker Flying Battery. Anything I could get here, I would get better versions in other games. The only zones that I think are memorable and distinct from this game are Chemical Plant and Oil Ocean, and they're in Mania, so yeah. Again, this isn't a bad game, I actually quite like it, but I personally do not feel like there's any major reasons to go back to it aside from I like it more than Sonic 1. I'm just not as passionate about this game's zones compared to all the others, which made it super difficult to write about them. In conclusion, however, Wing Fortress is just a solid final level, nothing too crazy, and it leads on to Death Egg. This is a zone which only holds the final boss, similar to a Final Zone from Sonic 1. I haven't talked about the bosses in this game yet because all I could say is that they are serviceable. You can easily take them down with supersonic, and I really don't remember any of them aside from this final boss, because it was hell on my first playthrough. This thing took around 40 minutes for me to beat. I'm not joking around. You start with this Sonic robot, which is super easy, but then the Death Egg robot. There are 0 rings available here, so no supersonic, and only 1 hit to die. The goal? Hit the underside of the robot a whole bunch of times. The problem? It's basically impossible to find the damn hitbox. Too high and you hit the spiky arms, too low and you hit the legs. It is so difficult and long to finish. I don't think it's a badly designed fight, it's actually quite good once you figure it out, and I felt relieved once I did it. But this is a problem I have with about half of these 2D Sonic games. They have needlessly difficult final bosses. I get it, you want to have a bit of a challenge for the final fight, but when it requires me to spend 40 minutes figuring it out, I don't know if that's a good thing. Could just be me though, tell me in the comments if I'm missing something. And that was Sonic 2. Again, sorry if it sounded like I complained a lot about your favorite Sonic game or whatever. I just feel like there's less of a reason for me to come back to this one, arguably even more than Sonic 1. I don't feel like I've experienced anything new on subsequent playthroughs, aside from Hidden Palace Zone, when I've constantly learned new things about all the others. One thing I've gotta mention though is that the soundtrack is pretty keyno. Not as iconic as Sonic 1's, but there are some great tunes here, like... Mystic Cave's theme is quite the snazzy tune. I wouldn't mind listening to it when walking down the street or something. There's a certain vibe about Metropolis' theme that has not gone unnoticed by me. I like it a lot. The final boss theme is another dastardly evil theme to add to the collection of evil Eggman themes out there. It's a great listen. There are a few others that I won't play here, like Emerald Hill and of course Chemical Plant, but I'm sure you've heard those enough to where I don't need to play those themes. Well, that's everything about these two games, so let's end this. Sonic 1 and 2 are very necessary games in the grand scheme of things, as they truly lay a fantastic groundwork for the future 2D Sonic games to thrive in. There's this formula for trilogies I've seen people say about Nintendo's franchises, where the first game is a solid beginning but needs improvements, the second is something totally new and wacky, completely unlike the first, and the third is a perfection of the formula laid out from the first entry. I feel like this layout could also be used for the original Sonic trilogy, if a bit altered. Sonic 1 is a great first attempt but needs some ironing out, Sonic 2 refined the speedy aspect of the first entry but still doesn't fully set a standard, and Sonic 3 is that perfection of the formula. CD would be that weird game in the middle that's totally wacky and it really depends on whether you like it or not. But yeah, even if I probably won't be coming back to these games nearly as much as the others, I still forever cherish and appreciate them for laying that groundwork. See you in the next one, which is one of my most anticipated videos to work on yet. I'm so excited to make it, so I'll see you then. Goodbye.